Stigmatization around mental health still exists. When it comes to parenting, they always say there is no single playbook. When your child is growing up and they start to struggle, you can often feel like you're completely alone. Talking about your child's mental health or substance use is not typically the first topic brought up when you're around your friends. Since January of 2023, I've been extending the opportunity for parents who feel comfortable talking about their journey to do so on this podcast. No topic is off limits, and not all stories are positive. This series is meant to be honest, transparent, and real for each individual parent's experience with their child. Please note that this special parent series is the parent perspective of their child's crisis. This is merely one perspective of a single story, and it's important to know that names have been changed for the protection of the parents and the children. These episodes may include details surrounding suicide, self-harm, substance abuse, including overdose, hospitalizations, psychotic episodes, and other traumatic experiences, which include parts of the treatment journey. That includes working with consultants, hiring a transport, wilderness therapy, and residential treatment experiences. All that is to say, listener discretion is advised. Welcome to the Parent Series, brought to you by Success is Subjective.
It's time now for the Success is Subjective podcast. Here is your host and therapeutic consultant for young adults only, Joanna Lilly.
Hi, and welcome to the show. Today, my guest is Ben. Ben is a parent who supported his young adult going off to college across the country. It wasn't until he received a call from a classmate expressing fear about his young adult's well-being that Ben realized the gravity of what was going on. Ben talks about his journey navigating the senior year into college transition as a parent, is vulnerable about reflecting on his parenting style at the time, and then talks about how taking a break from college and getting his young adult help is not just what saved his kid, but also helped their family. Okay, let's get to the interview now with Ben on today's edition of Success is Subjective. Ben, thanks again for being a guest on the parent series of the Success is Subjective podcast. Thanks for taking the time to be in a quiet spot to be able to have this conversation. And if you're okay with it, let's just actually jump right in. So we're going to get right into it. So if you can share a little bit of the backstory, like what was going on with your child prior to entering treatment?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you. I'm really grateful that you asked me to be on this podcast. And, circumstances aside, I don't know. I'm honored. Yeah, it was not a long road, but there was sort of a 2-year window where my son kind of went dark. He wasn't really responding to texts and he wasn't really checking in, and he was just being sort of vague in his all communications. And, we lived in LA, and so we just didn't, it was really hard to sort of let go. We were like, yeah, he's old enough that he can always, anyway, so there were 2 years of just being extremely anxious and feeling like, oh, maybe maybe we shouldn't be this worried. It's his senior year. He's got 1 year left in college. But yeah, that was kind of the beginning of the dark days.
Yeah. You talk about anxiety, right? Like, here's a parent, at what point, is this normal? Like, when do we intervene? Were there other feelings that you felt during this time, aside from anxiety, or maybe anxiety was it? But I think it's helpful for parents to just kind of tap into what was really like the feeling. What were some of those concerns? Because I think that also normalizes anybody else that's listening to this. Like, are they on this same path?
Yeah. I mean, we've always given him like so much more credit and so much more like space than another kid, because we're like, he is already so fully formed. But we started to notice this kind of like pattern of erratic behavior, especially his senior year. And it all kind of came to a head at this party. that he got invited to, or no, he kind of crashed. It was a party that him and 3 other guys from his high school were uninvited to, and went to the party. And there was an act of vandalism that happened at the party. There was like ended up getting kicked out, and in response to that, he took the mirror off of a BMW in the driveway of that person's house. And he was also there with 2 other high school friends. And the whole thing, he was like caught on. He was caught on somebody's webcam or something, or somebody took a photo. And so that we got that, and that was kind of like a real sort of like, kind of wake up call.
Yeah.
His career.
Yeah, that's not anxiety. That's an alarm, right? Like that is hold on. We didn't raise you to do something like that. Like, where did this come from?
Yeah. Yep. It was really bad. We didn't handle it very well. We were like, when the woman came forward with these claims, or her mom came forward with these claims, we were like, we kind of downplayed it. We were just like, boys are being boys. And we handled it terribly. Like, should have written an apology letter. Like, there should have been like immediate consequences. But like, it was just that time where like everybody's, finding out where they're going to college. Like, this is like sort of the last. So anyways, it wasn't great for them. It wasn't great for us. It just was awful. But I didn't know what to look for. I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah. That's profound, right? What you just said, like, we didn't know. We didn't know. We didn't know what we were looking for. Like, I feel like that is such a common experience for a lot of parents because we're so wrapped up. And like you said, you're talking about end of high school year. We're focused on like, there's so much in transition that it's almost like we're flooded with all this information. And if anything bubbles up that feels like this could impact the trajectory, or it doesn't need to because it's so inconsequential, then we prioritize what's being thrown our way. And so I think that's, what you're describing as a parent. And I also want to acknowledge what you're describing as a parent is normal. And I want to acknowledge that you clearly have done a lot of reflection on kind of some of those key points that then continued to escalate, but you've reflected on it from a parenting perspective, which I think it's just helpful for you, right? Like, okay, in hindsight, we probably could have done things differently. We didn't. And then we got to where we were, and here we are.
Yep. Well, now that we know, we're like, oh, right. Now we're able to sort of put together some of those pieces and look back reflexively and go like, oh, yeah, right. That wasn't just like senioritis. Like that was him trying to soothe and to, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, he also had this other terrible thing happen where his senior year at our fancy private school that we went to, he basically got like dumped by his friend group, which is really awful because there was some like rich kids at this school, and but there were some kids that kind of went out of his way to sort of like welcome to the school when they were there, and then that was just a real blow to his social ego and to his his confidence, and he was already probably medicating and self-soothing with a bunch of other stuff. So like, who knows how he would have been able to handle that situation regardless of that. But anyway, so yeah, high school on top of whatever else is going on. But yeah, those were the things that made us really just start to go like, well, something's going on.
Okay, so I know a little bit about your young adult's backstory in the sense that there was a brief college experience. And so I want to ask you kind of specifically about that process, because if you're okay chatting about it, I think that, here you are talking about the senioritis piece and missing some signs, right? That were right in front of you. But again, you didn't know to look for them. So we're focused on this graduation. You're now ostracized by your friend group. There's a lot of these like traumatic events that he has experienced right on the tail end of like, again, this transition to adulthood. So he goes off to college. Oh, do you want to say something?
Well, I just was like, there was so much hope that at college he might be able to just focus on like the academic part, you know, or the social part, you know. And so we put a lot of like, okay, it's going to be Wildwood, but without the Wildwood. You know, he can just focus when he's at Bard. He can just get to sort of enjoy life, you know, away from LA. And so he went there early for this semester that the freshmen go to, which was great because he got to meet a bunch of other kids there, and there was another kid there who he liked a lot. And it was nice to have somebody else, you know, making the trip from LA back east with him, so that they could kind of, you know, check on each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was the freshman year of the sort of the tableau of.
Yeah. Well, it's the well wish, right? Like, let's close that chapter of high school. And my hope for you as a parent is now you've got a clean slate, right? Focus academically. You've got a new social network. Hopefully some of the recent experiences that you had at the end of your senior year do not rear their ugly head back on your campus. So here's like a specific question for you as a parent. Did you have any fears about his experience going off to college, or were you just hopeful that it would play out differently?
You know, I was really hoping that it was just going to, you know, play out differently. You know, like I really thought it was going to be a reset for him. It was going to be a small school outside of a big, you know, big city setting. Like he could just sort of like really just enjoy being like a kid again, I guess.
So no fears. That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe it was a bit over, but yeah. I mean, we just wanted him. We knew he is that kid that is so smart and was reading, you know, as a senior when he was like at a, you know, senior level as like a sixth grader and stuff. So we were like, we found this school for him. We found the setting. Like, this is it. He's gonna, you know, he's gonna launch. It's gonna be great.
And that is not what happened. But let's dive into just briefly.
Yeah.
Obviously, our listeners can probably take a guess, but also you kind of mentioned it, right? There was a treatment experience which has helped your child now, right? Now that we've several months through some like pretty serious therapeutic interventions. But for the treatment experience, I'm more curious how it was for you as a parent.
I didn't have any idea as to what to expect, but it was, you know, a lot of group therapy, you know, and a lot of other people who are fresh off of, you know, this same situation, you know, like 2 or 3 days, you know, fresh, you know, from the exact same circumstances. And so you seem sort of like, you know, kind of withholding when you go into it, but everybody there, you know, has been through the same thing, you know, just in a different place, and everybody's got the same sort of background a little bit, you know? And so like, I don't know, not comforting, but it was great to sort of find that community kind of right away. Cause you're just like, you can't, you know, we were really alone with this, you know, when you take your kid to therapy, you know, that's not something you put on Facebook. Like where do you go? You know? And so it was great selfishly, but yeah, that's the first thing that kind of came to mind. And then there was also like an art project they had parents do one day, not with, just really quickly, we had to do something where we talked about use like collage and stuff, art therapy to kind of come up with, you know, sort of I don't know, sort of like not a narrative, but just sort of like a reason for why we were here. And part of it for me was just this, like him being so smart and me not wanting to be like an asshole, like some of the other parents at his fancy school. And so I wanted to be like the cool dad, and how, you know, that ultimately, like, you know, I kind of paid the price for that. But anyways, that's, you know, another.
But that speaks to, the question I asked you was, how was the treatment experience for you, right? We're talking about, you know, usually people think, hey, we're going to get help for our loved one. It's not about us, right? It's them. They need to get sober. They need to do the therapeutic work. But the reality is the entire family has to have the opportunity to hold up the mirror and say, what did I bring to this table? How did I contribute to this? Like, where are we at? And also, like, through that reflection process, you're also learning how to do do things differently. And some of that, and I think this is actually a good segue point, is eventually having to do a little bit of reparative or healing work. And so I'm going to ask this. I'm going a little off script, Ben,
Mhm.
so bear with me. I think when I work with young adults that really struggle with like blowing up their friendships or
Yeah.
their relationships, they're really good at burning it down. They're great at building it up, and they're also great at burning it down. And so I think when I think about those attachments and the possibility or situation where that particular loved one ends
Mhm.
up having to go to a treatment program, they are very fiery about it. Although there's a willingness, there's also an understanding like, okay, yes, I know I need this, but I'm still going to be really pissed off about it, right? I'm going
Yeah.
to direct that towards you as parents. So I'm thinking that there's this, at some point, there's going to be a part of the therapeutic process where you're having to rebuild the
Yeah.
trust in your connection. Is that
Yeah.
something that you're working through right now?
Yeah. But that's exactly what it was like. And it was so tough because I don't want to say he embraced it right away, but that was exactly his reaction to it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of it too is just you mentioned it, right? You don't put on Facebook like, hey, my kid's going to treatment. Like, I'm excited about it, right? There's still stigma around it. So the same thing exists for what people think rehab or treatment looks like. Oh my God, it's like the stuff that you see in movies or you read about in horror stories. Actually, there's some pretty quality or ethical evidence-based treatment programs that exist. And there's more, you build it up, right? That fear-based, the resistance, the like, I don't know what to expect creates this narrative before you even step foot on the property of like, I'm not going to enjoy this. This is not going to be what I need.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Second to last question. I know that obviously you talked about this art project that you did, which is awesome because I love hearing about parents when they lean into like, here's all the things that we did when we were participating in the family-based side of programming. Were there any other resources that you were leaning on as a parent during this time? Like, did you read any books? Did you listen to any podcasts? Did you, reach out to, like, what supports did you connect with?
Well, that's a really good question. They just had such great therapists at Ascend. I mean, it was just so amazing, to just be able to, I had such an appreciation for what that job is. There was one other thing that Ascend did that I thought was really great, which was that they have this like horse therapy part of it. That's where you learn you learn boundaries. Like that's a lot of what, this is for families, and cool dad needs to learn, about making boundaries, going forward. You can only do this if you do this, and I don't know, but anyways, they have this thing there where you get to actually be in the field with horses who are kind of running free and in the wild, or not in the wild, in this like penned-in farm area. And, it was really great to see kind of in that environment, like start to get in, to take some ownership a little bit. And this was, of course, once he was more settled in at Ascend. But the idea is that if you're not quick and decisive in giving a horse a direction to go in and a place to go in, you could be trampled by this 1,600-pound, beast. And so I don't know, that was a really great, learning skill for me as a parent, and it was great.
Okay, last question. And so we're going to go out with a bang. So as a parent, and I love this, that you've been really reflecting on like, hey, I was the cool dad, right? Like no boundaries. So I wanted to make sure a very different perspective as a parent. But I think that we have these visions of what success looks like for our child. And you also talked about like, hey, when he was in 6th grade, he was reading at a senior level. So I just like, he's so intelligent. There's so many things, like he's got so much potential, right? I'm sure that was an expression that was used at some point. So now that your son has been through a treatment continuum, right? College interrupted. I'm curious from the parent perspective, if your vision of what success looks like for him has changed. Yeah,
of course. There is a sort of a realignment of what you think this next stage is going to be, a healthy, I guess, realignment. And we're still very much trying to figure out what this is, but Yeah. Initially, it was like, we got to get Will back to college, like we can just take a semester off or a year off. But I don't think my son needs a college experience in quite the way that we had been planning and we had envisioned for him. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't know exactly what that will look like and where it will look like, but that's totally okay. He does need to challenge and put himself out there, but there are other pathways out there, and he is figuring this stuff out now. He's going through rehab now. As somebody said to me, he's like, oh my God, he's making all of his mistakes are getting out of the way now at the age of 19. So yeah, there is that kind of like, it isn't what we planned, but there's a hope for a future that he will have his feet underneath him. And yeah.
I love that. Well, Ben, thank you for taking the time to share your parent perspective of having a loved one through the treatment process, and for being vulnerable and talking about your experience as a parent. So thank you again for taking this time.
Of course, you're really good at this. This has been really fun, if I can use that word.
That's it for this week's Success is Subjective episode. We want to thank our guests for joining Joanna on the show this week and for being willing to share your journey. This podcast would not exist if it weren't for people such as yourself. Stay tuned for our next episode, where you can bet it'll be another amazing human sharing their personal story with the world. Make sure you check out the show notes, where you will find contact information, website details, and all social media for our guest. If you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, you can email Joanna at lilyconsulting.com. Be sure to check out the lilyconsulting.com website for additional resources outside of podcasting. Now, if you're listening to the show on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe. And while you're at it, feel free to leave a review. You can also download to listen to the Success is Subjective podcast on other popular podcast apps, such as Audible, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio. Thanks again for listening in, and remember, there is no single path through life. Success is what you make it.
Do you have a teenager or young adult who seems to have lost their way? Maybe they need help navigating adolescence, adulthood, and decisions surrounding higher education. Or maybe they have become withdrawn, their grades are slipping, or they are flat out living a reckless lifestyle, and you're concerned about their health and well-being. If this describes what your teen or young adult is facing, a therapeutic consultant may be able to help. Mental health, addiction recovery, and higher education can all be equally expensive. Well, information is everywhere. How do you know what option is the best one for your family? Some parents have the time to research and navigate this on their own. Some don't. If the latter applies to you, enter therapeutic consultants. Therapeutic consultants, like Joanna, listen to your family's specific needs and advocate on behalf of your loved one. TCs will research therapeutic resources, recommend treatment programs, and assist during adulthood transitions. Not being affiliated with any program, their support is completely objective and catered toward the best interest of each unique family. To find a qualified therapeutic consultant to work with, check out TCA, also known as the Therapeutic Consulting Association. Their website is therapeuticconsulting.org, all one word. Again, that's therapeuticconsulting.org. Then click the Find a Pro tab up at the top.